Hello YouTube. This is Baylor Mage, and we are making a video on our second build in our little 20-ish X build project. This is my first time ever using General's Cry. This is a General's Cry Blade Flurry build. This is from a day or so ago, so I've got a little bit of leveling since then. But basically, the idea here is that we just use General's Cry to do Blade Flurry. I'll explain the mechanics behind that when we tab out of this. But it maps very smoothly at a very decent pace. I'm very, very happy with it. This might actually be the highest DPS build that I've run. It definitely is the highest one this league. This on, I actually went slightly over budget. This is 22 exalts because I wanted to move faster. This is 40 million DPS. What you can see here is this is a Guardian's Aid, Alked Phoenix. So I had to kill Phoenix twice and an extra boss as well. You can see there, we make relatively quick work of both of them rather easily. So that's with Guardian's Aid on. So it has been the highest DPS that I have ever played, at least in a long time. So I have a few little clips of like boss encounters and how they go, because it's just really, really fast. It's just really, really fast. This is the Cortex we did. I will go into the mechanics of the build in a second. As you can see, it takes care of ads. It moves around very smoothly. You can see we just get the Cyclone everywhere. Blade Flurry is triggered automatically. This is just super smooth, super easy to play. Because I chose to wear an Abyssal Mask, it is a little bit on the squishy side. This could be fixed with more investment without losing damage. If I was to spend another 20x on it, it would then be tanky as well. Or if I chose not to wear the Abyssal Mask, it would only do about 28 million DPS instead of 40, but then it would also be tanky. So that's a decision I made just to get as much damage out of it as possible, which I'm pretty happy with. There's this one, which is Veritania, and you just whoop, gone, and that's it. So incredibly smooth, incredibly good. So what happens with our mechanics, first we'll show you in our path of building. This is our current tree. We've got it set at level 93. There's plenty more we could get. This is our full DPS, which is 41 million. That is with Berserk up, but Berserk lasts a very long time. Berserk is up probably 80% of the time here. If you see, every time we shout, we go to 70 rage, which obviously without mobs to hit, it doesn't stay at 70 all the time, but the Berserk lasts a very long time. Berserk is still going right now, and that is without having mobs to hit. Still have Berserk, still have Berserk, still have Berserk. There it still has Berserk, and now this time Berserk will run out, and then as soon as the cooldown's up, we would press it again. But that actually lasts a little bit longer when you're in combat, because we also generate more rage when we hit stuff. So Berserk is up 85-90% of the time, and that is a DPS number with Berserk selected. All of these things are real things that do happen all the time. We automate all of these processes, so there's nothing dodgy going on here at all, and it is selected as Cirrus DPS. So this is a ridiculous amount of damage. I have included in the path of building an alternate helmet that you would have to craft. It's a little bit more expensive because you do have to Woke Orb, an Elder, and Warlord item together, and then those are both suffixes, just crit multi and -9 to nearby, and then you would just reforge the prefixes to get a decent amount of life on it. But you can see that drops us from 41 to 28 million, but that does make us a lot tankier. The only thing that ever kills us is physical damage, and that is because the Abyssal Mask has 41% increased physical damage taken. We are actually relatively tanky as the build goes. It's got Fortify, it's got 30% block, it's got a lot of leech, it's got a lot of damage reductions. The Berserk has a really good damage reduction on it. It's got huge clear area, so most things don't even get to hit you, but when they do, it's only ever been physical I have a problem with. And that is only ever been because of the Abyssal Mask, but that's a choice I just decided to make to pump out like real good damage numbers. So, a real quick rundown on how this build works. The idea behind General's Cry is as long as there are corpses nearby, you summon Mirage Warriors from those corpses. And those Mirage Warriors do whatever attack you have linked in here, which for me is Blade Flurry. So I have General's Cry, Blade Flurry, Brutality, Melee Fizz, Crit Strikes, and Impale. And so to generate corpses, we're using a Cyclone, which I have a Divergent Cyclone on. Quiet dog. I have a Divergent Cyclone on. Whoop. Let's just close that door, shall we? Just to make us run faster is the Divergent Cyclone. We got a level 1 Desecrates because it costs the least amount of mana. And then just Infused Channeling Cast Wild Channel in Fortify Boots. So what our Cyclone does is gives us Fortify, as well as summon all of our corpses, as well as give us Infused Channeling, which is more physical damage and less physical damage taken. Berserk, a bunch of more attack speed, a bunch of less damage taken. Between those two things, we're actually more than tanky enough to do all tier 16 maps, but then we have the Abyssal Mask making us a little bit weak to physical. So up to you whether you want to use that or not. Rislatha's is 20C. This cost me 2x. Vulnerability on hit is really the only important part of that. I could have also opted for Assassin's Mark on hit on a ring, which probably would have given me even better damage, and they're not bothered with this. These also don't need to be Hands of the High Templar when you build them. Anything with vulnerability on hit would be fine, or any decent gloves and then getting Assassin's Mark on hit on a ring would have also been fine. There were plenty of options there. Plenty of options. It's important to get 1 minus mana cost to channeling to get my Cyclone down to 1 mana, and it's important to get 1 minus mana to not channeling, because otherwise General Cry costs too much. So to maintain our mana with very little mana, we need to have minus mana on both of those things. And then you can see here that I would eventually run through my mana, but it keeps popping up. The trick to that one is this. Kataba's teaching adds Disciple of Kataba. Every second, consume a nearby corpse to recover 5% of life and mana. Now, it does have 10% more damage taken if you haven't consumed a corpse recently, but recently is in the last 4 seconds. It consumes a corpse every second, and we generate more corpses than we need continuously while cycloning. So that never happens. Literally at the start of a map, when you walk in, you haven't consumed a corpse, and then 1 second into the map, you consume a corpse. And that, just while mapping or while bossing, that will never ever be a problem. That is, there's no downside there. There's just 5% life and 5% mana every second. So that's very, very nice. That mixed with this, which is recover 10% of life when you use a Warcry, which my Warcry is on a 1.44 second cooldown. Between those two things, that's actually a lot of life recovered as well. So there's a lot of things in this build working together. However, the playstyle of this build is incredibly smooth. All you do is put General's Cry on left click, and then Cyclone at the same time, and just hold down right and left click, and then that's it. Push your flasks or automate them like I did. Blood Rage, you have to press once, which doesn't interrupt you. Berserk, you have to press once, it doesn't interrupt you. Eventually when Berserk falls off, you press it again. It's all instant. When you get to a boss, place one of each totem, so you've got your totems down. That's it, same thing. Just go again. If you were willing to press another button, you could have got a Vaal Ancestral Warchief, and you could have gone Ancestral Warchief, Ancestral Protector, Vaal Ancestral Warchief, and that would be even more damage if you were willing to put down 3 totems. I'm lazy, so I didn't. Honestly, I don't know how much that would pump the DPS up by, but I'll bet it's at least 8 to 10 million. You could probably push the build to 50 million by doing that. I just didn't bother. It already kills stuff way too quick. It's already way more damage. It did feared encounters. It's done Shaper. It's done Cirrus. I have another Cirrus 9 encounter that I will link in the description so that if people want to see that, they can see it. However, we're going to go over something a little bit important. This is something important if you're going to build this build. When building this build, you have to get this attack rate on Blade Flurry with Berserk up above 10 attacks per second. If you don't get it up above 10, literally 10.01 is enough, and 9.99 is not enough. And the reason for that is the duration on the Mirage Warriors lasts exactly long enough that if you have 10 attacks per second, they can get to the full 6 stack and release for Blade Flurry. If you don't get that, they actually release early, and Blade Flurry does 20% more damage per stage. So it actually is really, really, really important that you get that up above 10 with your buffs up. So that's when you're flasked, when you're berserked, when you've got everything up, it needs to be above 10, because bosses will fall over inside a 4-second window. So you will have everything up for every boss in the game. That's not a problem, but the attacks need to be above 10 per second. And then there's a small problem. When looking at Path of Building, if I just take this node and pretend this is a 5% attack speed node, you'll see if I put it on, it thinks that my DPS goes up by a lot, but it actually doesn't, because my Mirage Warriors from General's Cry will only attack once. So attack speed mattered a lot to get us up to the 6 and release within the window. But once you're there, more attack speed doesn't actually do anything. Because they only attack once anyway. So I got it to 11 pretty much by accident. I could technically drop this now, but the extra 10 rage is worth too much, so I'm not going to. But 11 is fine. 11 is comfortable. But the important thing is a lot of people have anointed this node because it's 50% increased effect of buffs from your ancestral totems grant while active. And so Path of Building tells you that this is the absolute best. In fact, in my particular Path of Building, when I hadn't anointed either of them, it said this would give me, I think it was 20% DPS, more DPS, and this one would only give me 16% more DPS when I decided which one to anoint. Those were the numbers. However, Path of Building thinks that the more attack speed from Ancestral Protector is getting its 50% buff, and it thinks that that matters. And so I think that that is just it, taking that node as an anoint inflates my Path of Building DPS, but doesn't actually do as much. It would still do the 50% effect of my other totem, because there's 2 totems there, the more melee damage and then the more attack speed one. So the more melee ones will still get affected, but the more attack speed doesn't actually do anything for me except drain my mana faster with Cyclone, because we're only using Cyclone for fortifying, fuse channeling, and casting corpses, so we don't really care about its attack speed. And now that we've hit the attack speed cap that we need for the Mirage Warriors to get their full attack off, in reality, it doesn't actually add any more DPS to have attack speed. So getting 10% more attack speed, even though Path of Building thinks it's a lot, I don't think that translates into game. So I've ended up anointing this one, which has been much more damage, especially because I wasn't crit capped anyway. I now am crit capped, but I wasn't without that, and so that was the big deal that got me over to crit cap. So very nice build, super smooth to play, super fast at mapping. 22x again. We went over the budget slightly. We went to 22x. I do apologize, but yeah, absolutely fantastic. Path of Building will be in the description. The Cirrus 9 kill will be in the description if anyone's interested in watching that. Couldn't suggest this build enough. We're probably going to go with something that has lower DPS next time, because I don't know if I can pull off 41 million again on different builds. Also, let's be honest, 41 million DPS is overkill for anyone, and this is in the semi-budget version. The biggest advantage, the biggest takeaway from this build, the best part of this build is it does have nearly infinite scaling, to the point where I could spend 500 exalts on this build and it would keep sucking up currency, and it would keep getting better. It would keep getting faster, it would keep getting tankier, and it would keep getting more damage. I have seen Path of Buildings of this with 400 million DPS, not 41. So it can just keep scaling, but also at its stage right now is all you ever need. So yeah, that one looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. First time I've ever played General's Cry build in my life. Very much enjoyed it. That'll be all for this video. I will see everybody from YouTube in a few days for the next build. Goodbye.